Did you know that Turtle Beach is one of the very few companies to have a Nintendo Switch 2 licensed controller from Nintendo themselves? Not only one, but technically four. And it's going to get a little complicated, but it'll make sense by the end of this video. First, you have the Rematch, which is the wireless version. The Rematch wired. One is wireless, one is wired, but they share a lot. There's a few other things which we'll cover in this video, but I'll get back to that later. There's also another model, the Afterglow, and here I have the wired version. There's also an Afterglow wireless, which I do not have. If you look at Afterglow wired and Rematch wired, they are effectively the same controller, except one is see-through with RGB and the other has a different aesthetic, different look. But as far as functionalities, as far as features, they're all the same. The difference is really lean on the look that you prefer when you go wired versus wire. But if we look at the Rematch wireless, it would be the same thing. The Rematch wireless has features that makes them different from the wired version. But if I was to compare it to the Afterglow wireless, if I had it, it would be here. They are effectively the same controllers minus the look. And when you think of all these different SKUs, you have a lot of different color options, but just know that the options are not available for all SKUs. The Rematch wired, for example, is only available in black, whereas the wireless is available in black and a Mario edition. There's a bunch of different options. We have a Type A to Type C wired, and keep in mind this is the wireless version, so this will be to charge. And I guess you can also use it wired, but you don't have to use it. There's nothing special about the cable. It's not braided or even branded. It's very much a generic, what I would assume 2.0 cable. There's also a quick manual. Pretty straightforward. A lot of the things I will say will take into consideration the official controller from Nintendo. This one feels, I want to say, a little cheaper and also a little bit lighter. It is very soft all around. However, the texture that you have in the front and in the back is not exactly the same. There's a slight difference. This is very subtle. For those of you who are sensitive to touch, this is very, very subtle. Honestly, you could believe that there's not even a grip here because of how tight those little dots are. You barely feel them. And the back buttons feel about the same. The buttons have a little bit of a different texture than the front housing, which is quite soft. Same goes for the D-pad. It's very similar though, but we are still into something that's slightly different. And same goes for bumpers and triggers. In terms of ergonomics, we are very, very close. You can see that they really tried to stay close or as close as possible to Nintendo's first-party controller. Couple of differences that you have in the wireless version versus the wired version. They both have a C button, by the way, so that's no different. They both have the back paddle, but this one doesn't have audio at the bottom, whereas the wired version does. So if you want to use that controller to put your 3.5mm jack, you can do so in the wired version. You cannot in the wireless version. They both don't have rumble. The wireless version has gyro, the wired version doesn't. The wireless version have TMR sticks. So TMR are the improved version of Hall effect. Basically, you have the same benefits, no drift, usually longer lasting in general, better all around. They use less power as well, so it's better for battery life. They feel more like a traditional potentiometer without the downsides of them. So this is what you have. And, you know, just to keep it simple, it's a little more complex than that, but to keep it simple, TMR, that's the benefit. Whereas the wired version has Hall effect. Still good. They use a little more power, but it doesn't matter here because it's a wired controller. The linearity is not as smooth on a Hall effect, and also the resolution, which means that oftentimes the TMR sticks will capture data better throughout your entire stick. We have a pairing button up top. We have the two back buttons. One thing I'm curious to see is if this is going to be mapping with the software like the original Nintendo Switch 2 controller, or if it's going to be like something that we remap on the controller itself. We'll soon find out. In the meantime, buttons, they're oh geez, this is a very loud membrane and very snappy. It's one of those membranes that feels like it's almost like a tactile button, but it's not. Very, very bouncy, very snappy. The D-pad is softer and much more quieter. I'd say the D-pad resembles the first-party controller a lot, whereas the face buttons, they're definitely more stiff on the Turtle Beach. For the bumpers, they're also membrane, but again, a very stiff membrane, not as loud though as the face buttons, but they feel quite good. And same goes for the triggers, also membrane. So you can feel a silicone pad under these. They feel quite good. The back buttons are obviously tactile though. This is a dome switch for sure. Let's actually unbox a wired version, the Afterglow. So same goes, a very simple instruction booklet. This is something I was a little concerned with, if it was going to be a wire connected at all times, or if it was going to be something that you can unplug, and indeed you can. Now there is a cable guard here, so for those of you who like it, personally I'm not a big fan of cable guards, but oh well. Yeah, there's no grip here, so if you like a grip, you'll probably end up wanting to use a grip tape of some kind, or stickers. As far as the buttons go, the back buttons, yeah, they do feel different because this is like one big unit slapped together. Like you can tell that it's the same mechanism, but it's just the way that it's activating, you're flexing the plastic, whereas here it's a button. So it feels a little different, but as far as like everything else, it's basically the same. And for the bumpers, face buttons, D-pad, yeah, all of that feels exactly the same. So I'm going to put this aside. We'll start with the wireless version. So let me go ahead and pair it with the Switch. Oh, and one thing I probably forgot to mention, the wired versions go for $29.99, whether it is the Afterglow or Rematch, and the wireless versions go for $64.99. So they're a little more than double the price. Now to show you all three controllers, so this is the official one, and the two Turtle Beach controllers are currently connected to the Switch. So I'll go ahead and put the console to sleep. And right now, if I push the official one, it's going to wake up. So let's see if you can wake it up with the wireless method. And look, I'll let you know, no, you can't. So that's something to keep in mind. And when looking at the wired, and something I didn't know, when the Switch 2 is not powered, it seems that the USB is not getting any juice. So the controller is not even reacting. It can't be powered on. Now, if I open it up with the official one, so the Switch is going to come up, you'll see that now we just heard the little beep. And now it comes up immediately. And if I connect the controller, it will have no problems connecting once the Switch 2 is opened, but it will not, unfortunately, wake up the Switch 2. So here, let's go ahead and Donkey Kong Bonanza. All right, while this is loading, the C button is a proper C button implementation, as we can see. I'm not sure what this button does. It doesn't have rumble at all. And the wireless version does have gyro. Now, this is something, again, that is specific to the wireless version. You don't have gyro on the wired version. But what is there works really, really well. This is a very responsive, one-to-one kind of feeling gyro. Great quality there. And the sticks also vastly superior versus Nintendo's proprietary controller. They feel smooth, responsive. There's a little bit of a dead zone, not a whole lot. Very, very good feeling sticks. And also, the stick caps are concave, so this is more in line with what you often find with competitive controllers, unlike the first-party Nintendo Switch controller, which are Switch 2 Pro controller, which are, I want to say, almost flat, maybe just a little smidge convex, but these have like a good divot, a good dip. When it comes to that little button here, this is indeed to remap your back button. So whenever you hold it and you push a back button, so for example, right now I'm going to hold it and push it, it flickers, and now it's ready to input one button. I cannot do a double button or a macro or a turbo, anything like that. It's not part of this controller. You can only map one button. So if I push it, the flicker stops, and now my back right is gonna do what A does, which is jump. If I was to push it again, and this time just push the back button anew, it's gonna cancel, and now it doesn't do anything anymore. If you don't care for rumble, this is a pretty compelling solution that we have here. I really like the feel. It's almost to the point that you could forget that this is not a first-party controller. It is also lighter if this is something you like, especially if you're okay trading the rumble for lightness, potentially a pro of this model. But one thing that it doesn't have in comparison to the first-party controller is if we push home, you'll notice that I'm not getting a GL and GR remapping function. And so unfortunately, this is something that Nintendo locks behind the official Switch 2 Pro controller. The licensed version does not have that feature, even though we do have the back buttons. So you're going to have to remap per game based off of how you want to set it up, which granted is very fast to do, but it's just, you know, it's a thing that you have to remember, whereas on the Switch 2 Pro controller, you can set it per games and then set it and forget it kind of thing. And before we move to the Afterglow, the other thing I wanted to show you guys is, and I don't know if everyone knows about this, but when you go into the accessibility compatibility of the Switch 1 and Switch 2, you can completely change the mapping of your controller. Now, this licensed one, unfortunately, doesn't have the feature. And just to show you what I mean, if I take Nintendo's official controller, you can completely remap every single button. And that's why oftentimes, even with unofficial third-party controllers, because they spoof a Switch 1 Pro controller, you still retain that feature on non-licensed controllers. But for the licensed one, I guess Nintendo blocked that feature from being available, so you cannot remap as you would see fit with this one. And in case you were wondering while we're here, you can also not remap. So this one right now is, oh, I guess it doesn't show the little players. Anyways, this is 1, this is 2, that makes this one 3, and you'll notice that just like the other Turtle Beach controller, it cannot be remapped. In terms of remapping the back paddles, it's the exact same system. One thing that is different with the wired Afterglow is you can actually pop this, and that reveals the dome switches beneath. So I don't really see the reason for this, but anyways, you could remove it if you wanted. Oh, and like the wireless version, the C button is a proper C button. It is not, you know, a macro like we've seen with some non-official third-party controller. This one does as it's supposed to. And if we're talking specifically about the D-pad, I really like what is here. And to be fair, it's almost a one-to-one to Nintendo's. You would be hard-pressed to find a pretty substantial difference. It feels the same, the membrane that is underneath, the flatness that the D-pad has, and also the tension of the membranes underneath. It really is pretty much a one-to-one to the official one from Nintendo. So it's kind of a very good all-around D-pad, I'd say. Great for platformers, decent for fighters, not necessarily the best for fighters. Like if you're going competitive, the thing is we have so many options that are just, in my opinion, better tailored for specific kind of uses and specific kinds of games. So, you know, it's gonna be a great all-rounder. That's really what it comes down to with that D-pad. Overall, I'm happy with it. I like the feel. It's also good for comfort. And I also like that it's flat. So if you like to put a texture on it with a sticker of some kind, that's something that would easily be done on the D-pad like this one. If they were to tell me we sourced exactly the same part from the same factory, the same membrane, the same everything, I'd believe it. That's how much it feels like the first-party D-pad. Now, another thing I really want to emphasize is just the audio of these face buttons. They're really, I mean, if you are sensitive to noisy face buttons, you probably will be displeased with this one. You really hear them. In my opinion, they feel good, but you hear them. Like, and to be fair, I'm not using earbuds. I don't have volume for my game right now. This is basically almost as loud as a tactile button. I would say that a micro switch and tactile is still louder, especially because it's a higher pitch noise, but you definitely hear it. Now, when it comes to the sticks, much like the TMR, they have just a little bit of dead zone for the Hall effect ones. They feel good. They feel good overall. I do get the impression that the TMR are a little better to my liking. This is one of those areas where the lines are blurred and it's a little difficult to say which is best, but I'm not sensing anything that is unpleasant or unreliable with those Hall effect sticks. If I was to play the Switch with them, I don't see where I'd have a problem or feel like there's a delay of any kind. Overall, this is a pretty compelling solution that we have here. Another thing that you can do by default, the audio output is most likely to be TV, but if you want it to be on the controller, you can go into your audio settings, and right here I can change it to USB Afterglow, and you can also use the same port for microphone if you have a microphone. Unfortunately, I don't with what is connected to my controller, but right now I am hearing the audio through the headphones that I have plugged into the controller. And so if I go ahead and hold this button right here and do D-pad up and down, I can also, as you can see here, control the volume. And I don't know if I mentioned that, you can also hold this button and do the bumpers to change the different modes of RGB. And then in some modes, you can address the brightness by holding the button and rotating the right stick, and the color by rotating the left stick. So you have a couple of different RGB settings that you can do as well with this button. Yeah, those sticks are really good. That's In fact, dude, I'm trying to think, is there a Turtle Beach controller that has these TMR sticks? I don't think so. But these are some pretty good sticks. They feel quite good. Like in terms of feel and just even the small subtle controls are being very good. What is not good right now is my gameplay. I kind of, you know, playing through OBS, maybe not the best way to play the Switch too. Oh, look at that. I'm the first qualified. All in all, I think it is a valid contender and a valid licensed product. Again, I think some of the gimps, quote unquote, that we have on this one is due to the licensing, not so much because Turtle Beach wanted that way, but just because Nintendo probably demand that it's that way. I don't recall seeing a licensed controller have rumble of any kind. This is consistent with Nintendo and what they demand of their licensees. And then, of course, it would have been great to let Turtle Beach tap into the software, but I guess Nintendo was not willing to let that slide. The battery for the wireless version is up to 40 hours. So that would be important to know for those who will be going for the wireless option. And beyond that, I mean, that is pretty much it. Turtle Beach, we have the Rematch, the Afterglow, 2 options, both available in wired or wireless. I'm curious to know your thoughts. I think it's a slam dunk. I really think they nailed the balance between having a better price point and something that competes well enough with the official controller. I like what Turtle Beach is doing here. Let me know your thoughts. As always, please consider hitting the like if you enjoyed this video and subscribe to not miss any future one. My name is Clef, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.